some of the student activists who are involved with YAF and Turning Point and College Republicans and Young Republicans in New York City hosted a vigil for Charlie last night, a memorial for him in Washington Square Park, which, as you know, is not exactly a bastion of conservatism. It's not the Quad at Hillsdale. And seeing the reaction, I know much has been made about the online reaction and what's happening with people losing their jobs and being suspended for the things that they're saying, but being on the ground in the middle of New York City, supposedly the greatest city on earth, and, the birthplace of all these things, you've got the statues of George Washington gazing down on you. And you have people screaming, "Hail Satan," and Charlie Kirk is in hell, and all these horrible, horrible things in reaction to just, 55, 65 students gathering for a candlelight vigil to pray for America, to pray for their school, to pray for their generation. And you realize that this is to the point that a lot of people have, or the conclusion a lot of people have arrived at, that this is not a left and a right thing. This is very much a right and a wrong and a good and an evil thing. And I don't know how to put a finer point on it than standing there watching these young students shaking as they're praying for their generation and somebody standing behind them screaming, "Hail Satan." It's something that it was just last night, and I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and it was very, very sobering.
Now, it's not in your interest, of course, to say whether this has happened before, but I'm asking because I suspect the answer is no, that it hasn't happened before. Have you dealt with conservative students? Because there's all kinds of news made about like those creeps and whatever the group, Patriot Front and Proud Boy, whatever. There's all kinds of news about those fringe right groups. And there is some research. I know that we have some of this from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, that we can put on the screen. There's some research that there are some conservative students who are more, over time, have become a bit more open to the idea that you could use violence to stop a speaker over time. Although in FIRE's research, the demo with the highest level of support for that is self-identified democratic socialists, at least when they break that down by ideology. And if you look at, we can put F33 and F34 up on the screen, political ideology, most Americans say it's unacceptable. This is a YouGov poll, a snap poll right after Charlie was shot. People say most Americans it's unacceptable to be happy about public figures' deaths, but younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to call it acceptable. Most Americans across the political spectrum say political violence is never justified, but younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to disagree. And Spencer, these are two good pieces of research because the FIRE poll is measuring sentiments over time. And the YouGov poll was a snap survey after the events of last week. So that's why I think these are two helpful barometers. But have you ever experienced young conservatives agitating for violence or talking like you experienced people in, as you say, outside a vigil at Washington Square Park yesterday?
No. We've had instances in the past. One of the reasons I'm very proud to have worked for and to return to work for Young America's Foundation is we have not, ever tolerated that sort of thing. And we have had instances at some of our events where there are some of those fringe groups on the horseshoe, they're technically on the right, but they have way more in common with the left, that will show up and try to, will try to disrupt. They'll heckle, they'll try to ask.
Groypers.
Yes. And so we have dealt with those, but it was never threats of violence towards our speakers or our other students. And if anything, our rule at all of our campus lectures is if you disagree with the speaker, you go to the front of the Q&A line. So
yep. That was Charlie's rule too, right? He was always bringing the groypers to the front of the line.
Exactly, because that's the whole point of this, is having this open debate and talking about it. So instead of sitting in a Discord chat room, getting each other riled up about how right they are and how wrong everybody else is, you have a chance to actually air your ideas, hear somebody's rebuttal to it, and then think about, hey, did my idea win out on that, or am I wrong? Do I need a better argument? All these things that, again, normally happen in a healthy society where you can talk things out, are supposed to happen. But in terms of the violence the acceptability of violence along the ideological lines in the different groups is something that I think The longer I've worked in the conservative movement and the more I've thought about it, the more you again, and Charlie was very good at bringing this to light. Again, it's not this left versus right thing. It's right versus wrong. It's what is your hope? How do you value your own life, basically, is almost always the basis of what he was asking these students. And so I think when you have a belief system that is either nihilistic or is just basically telling you that there's nothing getting better. And it starts from the point of the victimhood ideology that we always see in these overlapping matrices of oppression, that is
so
intersectionality, all these things that tell you that, no matter what you do, you're doomed. That makes a person, just your own calculus in your head, probably subconsciously, more willing to do things that would typically be considered wrong. Because again, what's the point? If I adhere by this supposed societal contract where I don't commit violence against people I disagree with, I'm still doomed. If I do this, maybe, in those dark corners of the internet, maybe with the people who believe the same thing, they think, oh, well, I'm doomed anyway. So what does it matter if I do something crazy like this? And so whether it's, again, starting with these series of intersectionality, just all of this the point of demonizing America and demonizing God and demonizing everything that's good about what we have in this world is to rob people of any sort of hope that they have or hope for a better future. And that is an incredibly dark place to be in, especially when you do that at these young ages. We see it especially on college campuses, but we see it in high schools. There are some middle schools where this sort of thing goes on in the curriculum, and it's just incredibly damaging. Not just, again, on a societal level, this is very alarming and should concern everyone, and why we need to investigate, who's funding these curriculums, who's funding these different centers that are supporting these events. But just on a personal level, if you care about the future of the country, you should want the people that are going to be running the country to be fulfilled and happy and have goals and dreams and aspirations that they believe they can actually reach. Because if they don't think they're going to get anything better out of this, or especially if they don't think there's anything better after this, that's just not going to be somebody who's productive to society or is safe to even be around in society.
Victim ideology strips people of agency, and being stripped of agency makes people miserable. It is a very clear process. There is not insignificant social science research just from apolitical researchers that gets to that very point. Now, I've teased the Clemson story and want to get to it because, Spencer, this is, so Clemson put out a statement today, Clemson University, saying, following an immediate and deliberate investigation into inappropriate social media content, Clemson today terminated an employee due to their social media posts. After being notified on Friday to stay out of the classroom, 2 faculty members now have been removed from their teaching duties, pending investigation for termination. The university will continue to follow required processes with urgency. As these are personnel matters, no further details are available at this time. Clemson University's commitment to the safety and well-being of our campus community remains our top priority. So basically, Clemson was dealing, like many schools. These schools, places of employment, these compilation videos going around the internet, I think are worth people taking some time and watching. I don't normally advocate for elevating fringes unless we're very clearly talking about fringes. But in these compilation videos, what you see are nurses. You see teachers, you see everyday normal Americans, not the kinds of people who are shitposting on Discord, celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk or justifying the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So some posts from Clemson, apparently someone is employed there as an asbestos program manager, which is already hilarious, but posted Robin Newberry posted, in a world full of Charlie Kirks and Brian Thompsons, be a Tyler Robinson or a Luigi Mangione. Now, we don't know which of these employees fits into which category Clemson revealed there in this investigation yet. I'm sure the details will be forthcoming in the days ahead, which have been terminated, which are under suspension. There are a couple of other posts. This was from Melvin Earl Villiver Jr. He's an assistant professor of audio technology and global Black studies at Clemson. Retweeted a post, said, "No one mourns the wicked." Retweeted a post saying, according to Kirk, empathy is a made-up New Age term, so keep the jokes coming. It's what he would have wanted. A post that said Twitter after death, tweeted that actually. Melvin Earl tweeted that. Also, can't speak in public no more. Think about the ramifications. Today was one of the most beautiful days ever. The weather was perfect, sunny with a little breeze. This was such a beautiful day. Someone said Charlie was an old looking 31. Melvin Earl said racism and white supremacy age you. That's, I don't think quite as egregious as the be a Tyler Robinson or Luigi Mangione post, but more posts from people at Clemson. Those aren't the full extent of it. I actually don't even have time, Spencer, to keep going through these. But is it fair to say these are representative of some reactions you've seen around the country?
Yes, entirely. And I think it's obviously alarming to see this in a place like a supposed elite institution of higher education that is, again, training this next generation of people. And is, if that's your reaction to this, you can kind of conclude that their bent in the classroom or in any sort of faculty interaction is not going to be one that's beneficial for society. But I think it's especially alarming to see how far this has gone. I am not happy to see it, but it does validate something that YAF has been warning about for, at this point, at least 2 decades, probably closer to 3. And that is that what happens on college campuses never stays on college campuses. And it was this idea that the right had for so long that, they graduate college, they get into the so-called real world, they're paying taxes, they're having a family, things like this. They'll, sort of straighten out and become more conservative, at least fiscally. And that was sort of the hope and the promise that was made. And that was just never going to be the case, because at the same time that universities were being taken over and turned in these, mills churning out all these leftists with these warped ways of thinking, all those people were going where? They were going into business, they were going into entertainment, they were going into media, they were going into every single corner of our society, and they didn't grow up in the real world. They made the real world match what they had been indoctrinated with on campuses, and this is the end result. You have pilots who, in theory, should be mostly focused on getting you safely to your destination, not whether or not somebody's political ideology offends them. And in the case of nurses and doctors, the Hippocratic Oath, is that even a thing anymore? If we're going to just talk about like, they deserve to die. So what if, I get carded in and it turns into sort of a social credit system, and they're like, he liked this tweet from Chloe Cole saying that a man can't become a woman, so I guess we'll only try to resuscitate him once. Like, what is the end game of this? It's so damaging. It's so dangerous. And it's something that, again, those of us who worked in this area had seen coming for so long. And so, like you said, normally I would not advise people watch stuff like those videos that people are releasing, but honestly do, to understand, because sometimes you don't fully grasp the damage that's been done or the scope of work that it's going to take in order to remedy this, or at least address it and counter it, until you see it sort of face to face very viscerally like that.
Recently, I learned about colostrum. Have you heard about colostrum? I always want to do a Trump impression when I'm talking about, known as liquid gold that babies receive from their mothers after birth. It's packed with proteins, natural growth factors, antimicrobial peptides that work to enhance your immune response, reduce inflammation, repair and balance gut lining, reduce bloating, and make your hair and skin look amazing. Today's sponsor, Cowboy Colostrum, offers the highest quality cow colostrum. Highest quality cow colostrum available in the U.S., 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. They're the best cows, folks. They don't overprocess or strip their colostrum, leaving it whole, full fat, and high protein for ultimate nutrient density. It is the highest quality bovine colostrum you can buy, and it's easy to drink, made with delicious natural ingredients and no artificial flavors. It really is easy to drink. Simply add a 3 gram scoop of either the chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, or strawberry in your coffee or smoothie, or actually even in milk. It's really tasty. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/afterparty and use code AFTERPARTY at checkout. That's 25% off when you use code AFTERPARTY at cowboycolostrum.com/afterparty. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Say, I came from Afterparty for the best cows.